Hello and welcome back to the Thought Leader podcast. I'm Sam Bylett and today I'm joined by Parker Cox, co-founder at Pavago. Parker, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Sam. Appreciate your time, man.
No, it's great to have you here. So tell me a bit more about Pavago. What's the story there and what made you decide to jump into the global recruitment space?
Yeah, well, we're, an offshore global team recruitment agency for Western companies, primarily the US, England/Britain, and Canada. We got into it because we saw a need in the market. I own a couple other businesses that are in the, seven-figure revenue range, and it's a part of the market that isn't really well saturated. And then even worse, we didn't see the sort of product or service solution, especially model that we were really interested in. And so what that meant was, hey, we found a great solution. We had friends hitting us up, and I'm an entrepreneur, so a light bulb goes off. But then we saw the capacity to become the first, what we call membership solution, which is really the best of a staffing style option with ongoing support, ongoing cost, but also recruitment, where this person works for you. They're a full time remote teammate. And so it's the classic entrepreneurial created what we wanted, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. And what kind of companies do you typically work with? I mean, you mentioned something like the sweet spot around 2 million in revenue.
Yeah, we have everything from tiny little brand new consultancies up to several hundred person organizations. Our ideal customer, and I think the customers that are most capable of getting the value of offshore, tend to be in the 2 million revenue range or above, and also in the 10 employee or above area. Because the challenge is sometimes you have people making the decision to go offshore because they can't afford more help and they kind of just need an extra set of hands. And it's not that that can't work, but the people who get the most are able to look at the offshore talent as high quality, not just cost effective. And so you kind of need to have some experience in hiring. You need to have some SOPs and processes in place to get the most out of it. Now, we have clients who have had tons of success that kind of break that guideline that we put. But generally speaking, the probabilities would dictate that unless you have experience building a team, knowing what you're looking for in hiring, you're probably a little early. And it has nothing to do with offshore. It's really just remote in general. Even if they were two cities away or two states away, you'd still struggle because you don't have the process.
Yeah, yeah, that makes total sense. I also came across a stat recently. I think it's 83% of kind of small to medium sized businesses are struggling to fill roles because they just don't have enough internal recruiting set up. Are you seeing that play out with your own clients?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of why we exist. There's this interesting marketplace that exists, especially when it comes to global. It's like there's no doubt that there's solutions. We even built a job board solution that people can utilize. But the problem is that you're either looking for a role that is hard to find. So you need this kind of sharpshooter headhunting model where our experience is really useful, or it's a general role and you're inundated with literally hundreds, if not thousands of applicants, and it becomes too much the deluge is too big. You can't actually go through it. And so for us, we try and sit there where you get the advice and the support, but really, it's kind of in big companies, I call this recruitment process outsourcing. It's we do all the heavy lifting, do all the screening, hand it off to you, because a small business owner is like, great, here's an interview, here's a personality test, here's an application or resume, yes, no, and then they get to take it from there. Make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, see how that's totally streamlined it basically. Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense. The market right now, it does feel like, well, I think it's always been this way, but really intense. How do you help like your clients actually stand out when everyone's competing for the same people?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that help. Number one, we have a pretty large presence. And so because we are doing the posting and otherwise on our clients' behalf, at the top of funnel in gathering interest, we have a very solid reputation. We've got tens of thousands of followers on social. We put out a lot of what we call candidate first content. Hey, do this to improve your resume and all these other things, which buys goodwill in the market. And then we have testimonials related to how we function. When it comes time to then place this person with one of our clients when they're looking around, number one is we do a lot of the translation, right? And what I mean by that is the UK, right, where you are, has slightly different practices for onboarding and, what the expectations are around comp plans, bonus compared to base salary, then say the US, then say South Africa, then say Pakistan or Philippines. So that translation helps a lot, that somebody who doesn't know and is trying to do it on their own can often look less attractive. But I think the second piece is also having a process at all, for all the same reasons I just said, right? About 2 million and 10 people. You literally, the fact that we have a streamlined onboarding process and can kind of allow our clients to leverage that helps stand out. And then the last piece is really just explaining to the candidate. And I think this is why so many global teams are looking to work for Western companies anyways, is, hey, this company is stable. They're good. You have choice. They're providing you a very competitive offer. We're first. We have a saying that we target wonderful talent at fair prices, not fair talent at wonderful prices. So our clients go in knowing that they may be paying a few $100s more a month to be extremely competitive, but that's allowing us to really access the top 10% of the talent market. And there's a real mutual benefit across.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely love that. Do you think there's actually a talent shortage right now, or are they just fishing in the wrong pond, would you say?
I would say it's probably fishing in the wrong pond.
Yeah.
Something that can be a challenge is if you find yourself with a lot of experience in one country. Take Philippines, right? That's what most people think of when they think of like small business VAs and offshore. It is extremely good administrative talent. But if you were trying to find a salesperson in the Philippines, you'd think that sales just can't be done offshore. There's the shortage of sales talent. Whereas if you try and do sales, like South Africa is a phenomenal place for the West, English speaking, exotic as opposed to negative connotation on the accent. But if you were looking for real programming depth, South Africa is in a phenomenal place for that. So having a wide net and knowing what areas to target for what sort of, as you said, like where to fish for what sort of catch, that goes a long way. I also think we're maybe in the top of the second inning. We've seen blue chip companies going offshore for decades. We are less than maybe 5 years into true accessibility for offshore for small to medium sized companies in the West. We are anyone, you, me, anyone right now is an early adopter of global talent. And it's a very similar wave. And I think will be as ubiquitous as, say, AI. Less people are talking about it, but it will be that pervasive as we look at the next decade for.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'd like to talk just about employee branding now. So, if you could teach kind of every founder one thing about employee branding or something, what is something they're getting wrong and what's something they should be doing right now?
Yeah, I think that it's basically essential in the world we live in that you need to have a presence. It does not need to be massive. It does not need to be, like for us at Pavago, I think we've got like 40, 50,000 followers across all socials. You don't need anything like that. But you do need to recognize that whether it's Twitter or TikTok or Instagram or whatever, you have a chance to control a narrative with the content you put out. We think of blogging as a small piece of that, which is really good. And I think it's important. I think in the West, we think of like, hey, your Google reviews, or I don't know if they have Yelp in the UK, but your Yelp reviews, right? That's kind of an example of this articulation of your message. Hey, we care about what we do good. And there's some business owners that kind of dumb, like, oh, we don't care about that, right? And you, at the moment you don't claim your Yelp profile, anyone who leaves a review is claiming it for you. And so in the same way, I think LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever platform makes the most sense for your business, it's not about being big, but it is about if somebody goes and searches, they should be able to understand your messaging, your vibe, who you are, what you care about. So less followers, more message. And if followers follow, great. But that goes a long way because you know as well as I do. I mean, you probably looked me up before we communicated, and I looked your company and you up, and you start to get a sense of who someone is, and every brand and company needs that as well.
Yeah, it's so important now, isn't it? It really is. It don't matter who you are, like you said, how big you are, how small you are. You need some kind of branding of some sort, and yeah, the message is the most important thing without a doubt.
100%. 100%.
Tech. So tech's changed obviously massively over the past few years. Some roles that existed back then are now gone. Are your clients adapting fast enough for these changes?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think there's a bit of a selection bias because the sort of clients who are thinking about offshore right now tend to be early adopters and transitioners. You would be shocked at how rigid or non-innovative some medium-sized, I'm talking 50 plus or even 100 plus employee companies are. They're actually much slower than the agile 15 person organizations. So I would say that I see a chunk of that pop up where these medium sized companies who have clearly been successful or in the 8 to even 9 figures of revenue are kind of thinking like, oh, we've got it figured out. And they're actually a little late to the party. For the most part, I think we're all seeing, I think this AI wave has been one of those reminders, kind of like mobile 15, 20 years ago, where it's like the game changes and you're either behind it or you're with it. It's up to you.
Yeah. And what's your kind of take on AI? Are you using much of it? Where do you see it going in global recruiting?
It's funny. Yeah, we use a ton of it. We've built some of our own and we're constantly building more. Like we have a full-time AI engineer who builds stuff. We're very focused on automation. I mean, I think me personally, I probably have scaled down my Google searching to 2% of what I used to. I go to ChatGPT first, for everything. And so we're massive proponents. We also we have a community as part of our clients since within our membership, we teach about how to use AI better. We create custom GPTs for all sorts of solutions. I have a GPT of my voice to help create content on our blogs and otherwise. But within recruiting specifically, we're really focused. We believe a lot around, think of it as kind of like database management and screening capacity and rating capacity. There's the fundamental top level of recruiting is, can I look at somebody's resume, maybe a 30-second video and an application, and decide how well matched to that job this person is? And that's a very human judgment thing right now. We believe, and we're building a solution that is currently used, but certainly iterating. We believe that's going to be the most important benefit of AI in recruiting. There's a lot. I mean, there's probably been more than 500 million in funding given to a handful or, less than a dozen companies in the recruiting space that are trying to use AI for interviews. We personally don't believe in that angle. I think that interviewing needs to stay human. And I think it's really important, not just like, can AI match a human interviewer, right? There's a ton of reasons why that's great. It's like now it's asynchronous time wise, like it's more cost effective for the recruiter. But I think there's a bit of a dignity component where the moment you break that human interaction there, you start to, like, you've asked a lot about employer branding and all this. I think that recruitees will want human interaction. And I also think that there's kind of a need for that last layer to remain as a human to human, peer to peer solution. So our core belief is different than where hundreds of millions of VC dollars have gone, but we're going to die on that hill because I'm the CEO and I get to say so.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's such an interesting one, AI in recruitment, isn't it? I think the debate's going to go on and on how it's going to affect recruitment and how far it will go. And like you said, I think that's a good point you made about the actual candidates, or how they feel being interviewed by an AI rather than a human. That's a good point to make, I think.
Yeah, well, there was a time where when you wanted just a base job, you're 16 years old, you're getting your first job.
Yeah,
You'd walk into the restaurant or the sandwich shop or the clothing store and you'd talk to the manager and submit an application. That was a lot better than what my
yeah,
children are going through now, where it's like, hey, apply online. And then There's nothing. You get no follow up. There's no way. You walk into the place, you can't talk to someone. And I really believe that it is a worse experience. And I think something that most recruiters and ultimately companies forget is your employees are a version of your customer, right? For us, we need to find great talent. For our clients pay us, the talent doesn't. But we need to find great talent or else our clients will leave. And so you have to, I come from the property management world before this. It's like ignoring tenants because the clients and the property are the ones that pay you. And it's like, no, no, no. The tenants are the customer. If the tenants aren't happy, they leave. The client doesn't make any money. You get fired. Same sort of concept within recruiting.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And what's your take on the whole work from home versus in office debate? Where do you think some companies are still struggling with that transition?
You know, man, it is such a tough one because I really do think I think it can work either way, right? There's like famous large companies that are very comfortable being fully or mostly remote. There is definitely a ton of data and information that says that in person has all these upsides. I think it's 6 to 1, half dozen of the other. My core feel is the type of industry and company, and then how well set up the businesses are very important. And so, my point with that is my property management company, which is kind of inherently local, we have 4 offices. And so, my team is already semi remote, but they're in office in the regions for most core roles. Very helpful because you want to be able to, walk down and hand the thing to the person and have the discussion and have somebody come in. But for example, salespeople, the right personality is like distraction's bad. That ability to like co-mingle doesn't help. And so I think the role, the company, it all matters. The biggest thing is remote will fail if the business is not really well established in facilitating remote success. Meeting cadences that are effective, tech platform that's cloud based, the Slacks and Zooms and jumping on huddles quickly. Once you do that, I think you can use technology to bridge about maybe 75%, 80% of the electron exchange that happens in office, the water cooler combos. So I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you. I've
No,
sat in both camps.
yeah, there's no right and wrong, is there? I think you said it perfectly there. It's just it works for some companies and some it doesn't. Some individuals will prefer remote, some won't. Yeah, I think the main thing is companies are just a bit more flexible these days, or else they're going to lose out, being too rigid. I think that's the main kind of takeaway.
100%. I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, just touch on like candidates again now. So when someone's really struggling to like land remote roles, what's usually the problem? Is it their resume, their story, their whole strategy? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say they need to understand the process that we go through as a recruiter. Where are the key points where they can make an impact? And so, like, the first one is you have to be in the right place. Okay. So, global recruiters use a lot of different ways to find talent, but I would say LinkedIn is probably the biggest in the market for most. It is for us. So it's like first thing is you should have an effective LinkedIn, just like we said about the business themselves, like have a bit of a brand, show that you've written stuff. Like we check your LinkedIn. Yeah, have a LinkedIn. Secondarily, I would say that once you apply to a job, you have to be thinking, how does this work? It's like we don't get your application and then immediately review it. No, we have a process. There's probably about 100 people, I think on average across all roles, and there's more and less depending upon specificity. But across all roles, we average about 130 applications per job posting. That means that you then have to think about how do I stick out? Well, we do a review and we now use AI to help with this, a review of application questions and resume. So making your resume stick out visually is actually important. Being really specific. I think that there's a lot of people who say like, I'm a salesperson. It's like, don't do that. Say like, I'm a B2B SDR, BDR hybrid who can work the whole sales funnel. Like, which one of them sounds like the sort of person who could be a good fit for a role, right? So specificity is really important. And then detail, right? Don't just yes, no, the application questions. Add color, add additional. Beyond that, when it comes to like, if you make it to the point of an interview, dress well. You don't have to look like you're about to walk into Morgan Stanley in 1983, but like dress well, have your background look okay, like take it seriously, because I think that we all suffer from this. Remote work can lead to, well, I'll wear the t-shirt. But what is business casual? It's like you're in an interview. Err on the side of business, not on the side of casual. And that's, then being available, good follow up, all that stuff. Like at the end of the day, the whole process, start to finish, is an audition. Be specific, show you cared about your resume, good application questions, game face on the interview, and then good follow up. It's like, yeah, that's the sort of stuff you want to hire someone, right? It like, read between the lines, and regardless of the role, that's probably a good person to have on your team.
Yeah. And I think also, we touched earlier, I think LinkedIn is almost, as important as your CV, super, super important.
100%. 100%.
And what's next for Pavago? Is there any kind of major growth goals you're aiming for? Are you looking to expand into any other markets?
Yeah, we've been fortunate to be growing quickly already. We have our internal dream is to help 1 million people get hired. And if we do that, we will have left a real mark on the world. So, outside of the core business of helping people recruit and our model, and we have some stuff there. We're launching an employer of record solution instead of just independent contractor. And there's more depth. We're ultimately in the process of creating a centralized platform. Think of it as like an Airbnb for offshore recruiting. So a permanent version of Upwork, you could say. But I think more than that, we're also, I think, a deeply ignored part of the market that, again, if you think about top talent being the true product, quote unquote, we wouldn't be here without talent. We think there's a lot that can be done in pre-educating people. Something that we talk about internally is like the idea of a Pavago certification. I think a parallel to this is like what Duolingo is doing with giving you an English certification that can then be used elsewhere, right? So you actually see a lot of people say, hey, I'm Duolingo certified as a, I don't know what they call their tiers, but a tier 2 English speaker. So I'm conversationally fluent, I'm good at writing. Well, could there be something similar where we pre-train, we have free or very low cost training? For example, I'm Pavago AI certified. I'm Pavago accounting certified. I'm Pavago sales certified. And it's like a 12-part, 12 credit Udemy course where one of our clients can know, and hopefully eventually, even if they're not our client, if they see Pavago sales certified, they're like, I know that person went through 14 hours of true sales training, from list building through objection handling, through close, through follow up. And they get to say, cool, I will hire that person. That person's worth more, because we believe that if we can go invest in that side of that market, ultimately it's one of those flywheels that it's a rising tide that will raise all of our ships. So, we got a lot day in, day out. We're just trying to execute, help one more person, but we think there's some ways to really facilitate the market as a whole. And, we're trying to find the big levers to pull.
Yeah, exciting stuff. Where can our audience find out a bit more about Pavago and connect with yourself?
Yeah, you can find more about Pavago at pavago.co. And that's, you can see it on my hat, but pavago.co. We also have a pretty large LinkedIn presence, which is also LinkedIn. Just search Pavago, we're there. Me personally, I'm on Twitter at Parker Cox, so Parker Cox with the P and C switched, and also on LinkedIn as Parker Cox. Would love to connect. I mean, hopefully it's clear I'm passionate about the industry. I'm not one of those, hey, hire us or don't hire anyone. Hire offshore. It changed my life. It's up there with the single greatest decisions I've ever made as a business owner. We're early. It's a competitive advantage that will soon be a par for the course to just be competitive at all with your competitors. So I think that everybody who, you are in a good space in terms of offshore. This sort of recruitment is here to stay. It is only going to be more prevalent. I think probably less than 5% of companies have somebody international working for them right now. And I think within 10 years, that'll be more like 90 to 95%. Everything from the donut shop using an offshore bookkeeper through the, car manufacturer using somebody to run their robotics from a different place globally. I think it's everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Parker. It's been a great conversation, and yeah, we'll catch you next time.
Sounds good, Sam. Keep in touch, man. Thank you.